Good day everyone, and welcome to this presentation on a digital forensics where we're going to cover the need of digital forensics, the definitions, why cases fail, the goals of digital forensics, how do we figure out the truth, the locals exchange principle. We need to focus on the trace evidence. Also need to look at the digital forensics process, and then the incident response methodologies. Before we move on, we need to see what digital forensics, the need of digital forensics. So digital forensics is becoming crucial in both criminal justice and business. Many serious crimes go unpunished or delayed in court because there's no enough solid evidence. So these are backload and high rates of acquittals, people being found not guilty, show that we need better ways to prove guilty or innocence. So digital forensics helps us fill the gap by providing reliable scientific evidence from digital devices. For example, imagine a financial fraud case where traditional witnesses are unreliable. So digital forensics can recover emails, transaction logs, or deleted files that prove what really happened. Right. So also need to look at why are cases failing. So many cases fail apart because of weak evidence. Right, witnesses might change their stories, turn hostile, or maybe unreliable. So this makes it hard for judges to deliver justice. So digital evidence, when properly collected, I said when properly collected, is more reliable than human testimony. So if a witness claims they saw someone commit a crime, but digital evidence like a GPS location proves the person was elsewhere, the digital evidence then holds more weight, right? Then we need to see what is a digital evidence, digital forensics. So digital forensics is the use of scientific methods to preserve, collect, validate, identify, interpret, document, and present digital evidence. So this evidence comes from digital sources like computers, phones, and networks, right? So the goal is to reconstruct evidence like cybercrimes or prevent unauthorized actions. It's both a science, it's analyzing data, and an art, which is interpreting it to figure out what happened, right? So, an example, if a company is hacked, digital forensics experts can trace the attack, find out how it happened, and help prevent future attacks, right? So, forensics can be considered as an art and a science. The science of forensics combined with the art of investigation, applying scientific method and deductive reasoning to data is the science, and interpreting the data to reconstruct events is an art. So we also need to look at the goals of digital forensics. So the main goals are to find facts from digital evidence and to recreate the truth of what happened during an incident. So if files were deleted from a computer, digital forensics can determine who deleted them, when, and possibly why. So we need also to check how do we figure out the truth, right? So to find the truth, investigators look for remnants of events, right? Code artifacts left on digital systems. Not all artifacts are evidence, but all evidence is made up of artifacts. So evidence is what is presented in court. Artifacts are the digital traces left behind the action. A browser history showing visits to suspicious websites is an artifact. If it's relevant to a case, then it becomes evidence. Then there is what we call the locals exchange principle. This principle from forensic science states that every conduct leaves a trace. right? When two things interact, like a person and a computer, they exchange material, right? For example, burglars will leave traces of their presence behind and also take traces with them. They may leave hairs from their body or fibers from their clothing behind, and they may take carpet fibers away with them. So every person who is physically involved in a crime leaves some minute traces of his or her presence and often takes something away. So in digital forensics, this means every action on a digital device leaves some trace, no matter how small. If someone plugs a USB drive into a computer, the system logs the event, even if the drive is later removed, right? So trace evidence is any small measurable material left at a scene. In digital forensics is any meaningful data left on a digital device that can link someone to an event, right? So whenever someone steps, whatever he touches, whatever he leaves, even unconsciously, will serve as a silent witness against him. Not only his fingerprints or his footprints, but his hair, but the fibers from the cloth, the glass or he breaks, the tool marks he leaves, the paint he scratch, the blood or semen he deposits or collects. So all of these and more be a mute witness against him. This is evidence that does not forget. It is not confused by the excitement of the moment. It is not absent because human witnesses are. It is factual evidence. Physical evidence cannot be wrong. It cannot page itself. It cannot be wholly absent. Only human failure to find it, study, and understand it can diminish its value. Right. So how do we initiate figuring the truth, right? So every investigation, right, should start with a hypothesis, right? Such as the user copied files to a USB, an unauthorized user gained root access, right? Then a hypothesis, this is a theory about what happened. So investigators search for artifacts to confirm, right, this hypothesis. And evidence can be inculpatory, shows guilty, or exculpatory, shows innocence. So since the digital evidence can be changed, investigators must check if it's consistent with how it should have been created. If you suspect someone copied files to a USB, you would look for logs or traces of USB activities. Then we also need to look at the digital forensics process, right? The digital forensics process, right? The first stage is identification and accusation, right? So first, investigators identify what digital evidence exists, where it's located, and how it's stored. This could be on computers, on servers, on phones, USB drives, or even cloud storage. Alright, so in a hacking case, investigators may look for evidence on the company's email server, the employee laptops, and firewall logs, right? That's the first stage. Then the second step is a preservation, right? So evidence must be preserved, right, to prevent alteration or loss. This often involves making exact copies, code images of hard drives or memory, and documenting every step taken. So before analyzing a suspect's laptop, a forensic examiner creates a bit-by-bit copy to work on, leaving the original untouched, right? So alteration to data that is of evidentiary value must be accounted for and justified, right? Then the third stage is accusation, right? This is collection of digital media to be examined. So this is the actual collection of digital media and data. It must be done carefully to avoid changing the evidence. Chain of custody records are started here to track who has handled the evidence. right? So for example, seizing a smartphone and copying its contents while documenting every action, right? Then the fourth step is analysis. So the actual examination of the media, right? So the examiner reviews the copied data to find relevant information. This could involve recovering deleted files, analyzing logs, tracing user activity, or identifying malware. The analysis must be methodical, thorough, and repeatable. So this is using forensic tools to recover deleted messages or trace the source of a ransomware attack. So during this stage, FTK autopsy can be used. For example, when you are doing disk, you are doing analysis, maybe USB analysis. Then on acquisition, you can make use of FTK imager. This creates a bit by bit image, bit by bit copy. That's to work on. This one is during preservation. Sorry, this is during the second stage, right? Then the fifth stage is a presentation. This process by which the examiner shares the results of this analysis, right? So findings are presented in a clear, understandable way, often in court. Reports must be detailed, accurate, and written so non-technical people like judges or juries can understand them. So the examiner may also testify as an expert witness, right? So this is writing a report that explains how evidence was found, what it means, and why it's reliable, possibly using diagrams and timelines, right? So we move on to incident response and readiness. And organization must be prepared for security incidents. This means having plans and policies in place, training staff, and ensuring they can quickly collect and preserve evidence if something happens. So forensic readiness means being able to respond effectively, minimizing damage, and ensuring evidence is usable in court. Right? So a company is a procedure for immediately isolating any computer suspected of being hacked and for conducting digital forensics experts. All right. So the key elements of incident response and forensic readiness include incident response methodology, the integration of forensic readiness, then establishing forensic readiness policies and procedures, then evidence preservation. So this was an introduction to digital forensics, and here we learned a lot about the definitions of digital forensics, the incident response and the readiness, then the digital forensics process, then also looked at the local exchange, the trace evidence. We explained that. So this marks the end of our presentation. Thank you.